I think and this is one of the key things when I sat with as a representative, as a chief with the 74 nations, um, because there are a lot of perceptions out there. You've heard it. I led seminars and say, "Oh, we need people. We just keep throwing money at them, and this is our money, and then yada yada, right?" And that's fine. Let people think what they want, but what we'd like to do is, I think, and this is where we're going, was Indigenous communities are building capacity because we just haven't, we don't have, you go to any band, well, it used to be, you go to a band office and you wouldn't have anybody that knows anything about a calendar, bookkeeping or fiscal management, or even HR, right? But we are building capacity in that area. And so a big part of that is being fiscally responsible, meaning that, you have to show that your administration, your governance has sound fiscal management, is fiscally responsible. That's a big part of it. It's all about that accountability, right, and credibility. And so a big part of that is that. And what we're working towards as First Nations is and we had this discussion with our federal government. We said we recognize that federal government, has to be responsible for Canadian taxpayers. So we have to look at new funding instruments and a better way to do this. One of the things we're working towards was our own Indigenous Auditor General, which would simplify things a lot easier. So this is what we're working towards at in the big picture on the national level. So I used to sit at the National Chiefs Fiscal table on that, and so that discussion has been around, and I think that would be a good move, because then the government is accountable, First Nations are accountable. But in terms of fiscal management, there's again, dispelling the myths that there's misappropriation of funds. There isn't misappropriation. It's just very limited funding that comes to the bands, and bands are need to have that flexibility in terms of how they can spend that money, meet the needs of their people. And so the fiscal compliance responsibility is there. I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry. It used to be that corporations would go in and we'd really would really just look at the bottom line, which is the business case, and reap the benefits, and say that, and it's even this consultation, the obligation, the duty to consult now. The consultation would really simply entail a phone call to the chief, say, "Oh, we talked to the chief," right? And check, right? And so one of the things I say, and I've been to, like I see this changing, really in a good way, a positive way. And I say this at major conferences. I say to those industry partners that are sitting there, we applaud you for sitting here. And all of you, I believe, are here with sincere interest, and that's engagement of our Indigenous communities in a meaningful way. But to those industry people that recognize this only for the business case, the dollar, the shareholder dividends, we say to you, you shouldn't be here, because this is based on your organization committing to building a relationship with each community, and that entails a broad spectrum. When you sit down with the community, it's building a relationship and recognizing the needs of that community and committing to that, because at the end of the day, what these win-win partnerships and resource development, the business case will look after itself, the dividends will look after themselves. But if you commit to relationship with the community to build, a win-win in terms of an equity participation, yeah, great, right? The Coastal GasLink, 10%, We're looking at another 10 for 20% equity stake in that Coastal GasLink project. And so that's you know, the economic benefit is there, the revenue generation, the jobs, the training, the contracting, right? All of that. You have to have be prepared to sit down at the table and have a broad spectrum of things. And you have to also disclose, and this is where that prior and informed consent comes in, because what that requirement is really just sitting down in an open way and saying, yeah, you know what, this could be, you know, the environmental impact, right? What could be, how could your community, how could this harm your community? But it's full disclosure on all that. To me, that's a responsible. Irresponsible is those other things that I mentioned before, right? Just saying, well, we satisfied our duty to consult, and you know, we have an agreement with XYZ band, and we're going to reap the benefits, and it's leaving, you know, and in the past, there were all kinds of damage to the environment or Mother Earth, and but you have to have, at the end of the day, you should be leaving that community in the same state it was, with zero footprint, right? That, to me, that's a responsible project. It's like any relationship, right? You have to, the first step, and this is what I, and this is what I shared with, I think it was about 700 people in the room at a Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities conference. I think I was the lone brown fellow in the room, but I got up and I spoke and I said, we are all God's children. It doesn't matter. We're born with the skin color. We're born with, you know, what we have. But imagine what could happen if we all started to look at how we could work together. We put the politics and this misinformation over here, and we started looking. And I used an example. I said, I was chief of my community, and which is right around the metropolis of 5,000 people, Meadow Lake. And I said, imagine what happens if you call the mayor, or the mayor calls the First Nation chief and says, let's have lunch together. Let's go and have dinner together. Let's talk about, because the mayor of Meadow Lake was somebody that I grew up with. I played basketball and football with. And so there was a reason why that him and I were mayor and chief. And so we sat together. We started talking about, you know, infrastructure services, shared infrastructure services. We started talking about common issues with youth and policing, right? And it's the same thing with between industry. And so you have municipalities and governments coming together and talking about, you know, shared resources and addressing, resolving certain issues, common issues. And so you do that. And the same thing with industry. Industry, like I said earlier, I think, you know, understanding, you know, business and how industry usually operates, but you have to open your eyes to what's possible, to the opportunity that stands in front of you, which is engaging Indigenous communities in your business operations, right? And so a big part of that is going and sitting and calling the chief and leadership and elders and taking them for dinner and just say, look, we're thinking about a uranium or iron ore project in your community, you know, and talking about it, but coming there with just really committing to building that long-term relationship first. And so that's my advice, is really just being open and sincere and forthright, you know, that candid discussion that needs to happen, that open discussion. A lot of it is just being human and talking about these things. And so too often we get engaged in, you know, we're scared to show our real agenda, but if you're just open and candid about those things, industry, I see that happening a lot. Industry, some really good partnerships, like I spoke about some of those earlier, you know, that are happening out there, and I see them. I think we're getting there. We're moving that way. Things are evolving that way. We're building. The key part is for government to stay out of it, and we've said that at IRN. Government, you need to sit over here and watch, because an example is, you know, we've spoken at length about it. The UNDRIP really had provisions within, you know, that supported, you know, the right to freely pursue economic interests in our communities, in our Indigenous communities. That's you know, but Bill C-15 comes along, and it would seem would also almost give more power to those that detract from resource development, give more powers to those that oppose. So we have to have government sitting over here and looking at how it plays a role. Government needs to look at, that policy regime that I talk about, making projects not so arduous and strenuous in terms of, policy. Making one of the things we really endorsed is an infrastructure bank, making that available, or even a guaranteed investment loan program for Indigenous projects, right? So government has to kind of sit and wait and see how it can support these projects, but let those partnerships with industry and Indigenous communities happen, because that's already happening. Bands that want to have resource development are calling industry and meeting with them, and vice versa. So they are happening. It's just, again, having a very open and discussion, building relationships.
That's
what we need to look at it is, I mean, I think this is, again, the wheels are in motion, because I just about 2 months ago, I saw Pam Mudabi Leach, amazing lady. She's married to Reggie Leach, former hockey player. Just amazing lady. And we released the Canada's Indigenous Economic Development Initiative, or program. Okay, strategy. And a big part of that is about recognizing the key sectors of industry and engaging Indigenous people in those key sectors. Like it's already happening right now, obviously, in oil and gas, mining, and forestry. But those other key sectors, there's fishing on the coast, but there's also fishing inland, which needs to be engaged, right? There's agricultural, which is, I mean, agricultural has so much opportunity, because what do we have? We have a lot of land, right? Exploration, like I say, Cumberland Cree Nation has iron ore. Red Earth Show Lake. There's a shortage of helium in over the world globally, and here Red Earth Show Lake, the lighting matches that the stuff, because they got so much of it, right? So it's engaging Indigenous communities in the planning and strategy for those key sectors of industry, and so by engaging our Indigenous communities, you give more clout to each industry sector, and the forestry is a good example where the Middle Lake Tribal Council was able to influence. This is part of the award we got nationally. There was 2 arbitrary bills in New York and California, and I roused Middle Lake Tribal Council and other bands to rally in support of the boreal forest products industry in Canada, and so engaging Indigenous communities in a meaningful way into sectors of industry is part of it. And looking at ways to keep that dollar revolving within those sector industries too. So you keep that dollar circulating and staying within Canada, right? It's the planning and engagement of our Indigenous communities with government and with industry partners. So that's how I see that, building that economic foundation for the future. I got to say, I have 4 boys, and the knowledge and just because I think it's probably because technology too. A lot of it is my 16-year-old knows about everything. It's just amazing, right? You just, wow. It's I think our young people are just so capable and so knowledgeable, and I think we need to take it. That's a huge resource for us, huge resource that we can tap into and utilize in terms of, and I've said it to Lynn quite a few times. I said, in terms of even just research capacity, knowing, what sectors of industry and how to make, those things happen. But I think young people have the clout to influence change. They have the clout to influence change. That's what it is, because you have too many people, and it's not negative criticism, but it's reality. I always say I speak the truth, okay? And in our language, my way, it's speaking the truth is so important. But government, like I said earlier, government has to stop thinking it knows everything and it knows what's in the best interest of everybody. And so engagement of our youth is so meaningful in that planning and in the change that needs to happen. And so I see youth as having that power, that opportunity to influence that change that needs to happen. And certainly, I want, I've said to Lynn, I need to have um, one or two youth representatives on my IRN board of directors, because you have to think, you can't have the usual, square box. You need that out of the box thinking. Um, SFC has helped us a lot. Just not only with Lynn and Lily, they've been just amazing, but SIFC, I think in terms of just those, I think the biggest thing in all of this, ladies and folks that are on, the biggest thing is all of this is really embracing what I've shared today. I'm now I'm assuming my grandfather and my just I don't know what the heck happened. All of a sudden I'm a grandfather. And just like yesterday, I was still in law school. But anyway, it just with all this, I guess, knowledge I think at the end of the day, we need our young people to really understand that that things don't have to be the way they are. Things 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 can be much better. And that opportunity sits in front of us. And so young people, like I said earlier, have that ability to influence that change, to really showcase, the opportunity. And it's not just learning about in Canada, it's not just learning about embracing the Indigenous peoples. Yes, yeah. And I gotta say, politically, this administration has really it's been a long time coming. We've not had other administrations embrace our Indigenous peoples as much as this administration. And there are other, I know there are all kinds of other shortcomings, but that's politics. But I think that the opportunity is there for all of us to learn about each other's cultures. Okay. I want to learn about my East Indian people. I have a teepee just sitting out here. I had a month ago, I had an 18-year-old man, just a month from the Ukraine, sitting in my teepee with me and sitting in a pipe, smoking a pipe with me. And so it's the opportunity in Canada to really respect and embrace each other's cultures and really address those issues like poverty in our Indigenous communities, right? Or the treatment of other cultures. But I think young people have that opportunity to influence that change and make those things different. And SFC, I see as a strong organization, can influence a lot of that. And sending the message out there, yes, you know what? Yeah, let's take care of our earth, our land, our resources in a responsible way. But let's also and look at ways we can help our Indigenous communities in terms of those, generating revenue, creating jobs, because every dollar that goes in the community affects the lifestyle and health of the community member. We have to address the economic, the socioeconomic disparity in our Indigenous communities. And so SFC can play a huge role in that. Always, when I became a leader, and it's something I was already instilled within me from my grandmother, was that when you wake up every day, you think of how it is. What is the work you're doing? How is it? What drives you? And so you think of the very poorest family in your community, and so you keep always cognizant of that. You keep that in mind, and that's what motivates you. That's what drives you, and so in favor of it. And that's the rationale for it, right? It's really just you look at we used to have a band farm on my community. We're now involved in forestry as well. All those projects, and this is the message I send to each band, to get started on this road to building your nation, particularly economically, and your own self-determination. Establish a board with people with business acumen, people that know business, it has to be apolitical. So you establish this board of business people that understand, and then you look at immediate low-hanging fruit, medium, and then long-term stuff. And so you develop a portfolio of business ventures that you can actually accomplish, and then you start generating revenue. And so at the end of the day, though, it's each of those corporate entities has a revenue sharing agreement with the band, so that you're actually helping. You have a arrangement so that you have each family is getting per capita payment. So the benefits from your business is paying off, and making a difference in the lives of those families. And so to me, each project must make business sense. It must make money. And so a lot of bands are adopting that. They're forming their own corporate entity. They're going into low-hanging fruit, which, where do you spend your money, right? It's a lot of bands. I mean, they spend it on gas, they spend it on food, they spend it on clothing, and let's say technology, right? Phones and such. But it's where do you spend your money so you can keep that dollar revolving within your business interest. And then what kind of resources are available on your lands? If you have iron ore, you have exotic minerals, whatever, oil and gas. It's looking at those kinds of opportunities. But look at those projects and look at, in a very objective way, how would they benefit your community? Would they, and so I don't see any bad things to, because what it does, it brings the community together to work together to, Mamo Kamatuan means working collectively together, and so for the benefit of all. And so when in doing so, you bring your community together.
amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. So appreciate your time and your knowledge. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Well, I absolutely enjoy it. I hope I answered your questions. Sometimes, like I said, when I was when I was younger, I would see older knowledge keepers, and I would say, and then go off on a tangent, right? And I find myself doing that from time to time, and I hope I haven't done that too much. I hope I've answered your questions.
No, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, it's been absolutely enjoyed it. Thank you so much, ladies.
Enjoy your nice weather out there.
I'm going to, I'm looking at my hot tub, which is now doubling as my pool. So I'm gonna go sit in my pool.
Perfect. Enjoy.
Right. Take care. See you guys.
You too.
Bye.
Robert. Thank you. Bye.